So I had this idea. What if I practice an hour of animation every day for the month of January? I thought it was a pretty good idea. Yeah, for those first 5 days, I thought it was great. Now, without further ado, I'm going to share the behind-the-scenes process of how I worked on this challenge and what my thought process was, as well as sharing my thoughts on the challenge in and of itself. It's the Lily Factor. Ding! For the challenge, I worked on an hour of animation every single day. There was really no rules attached to that, so I could work for longer than an hour if I wanted to, and it wasn't restricted to any type of animation or specific practice. I could do whatever I wanted, and it could be 2D animation or it could be 3D animation. So I did both. But why did I even do this challenge in the first place? Well, it started with me having 1 hour before a doodle session with my cousin. There I was, doom scrolling YouTube, when I came across someone's fan animatic of Shadow riding around on a motorcycle. Had a bunch of cool angles and stuff, and I thought, man, I kind of want to do that. Well, I can do that. Why don't I do that before I jump on my call with my cousin? So I did an animation of Shadow kind of twirling around and teleporting. Since I only had an hour, I thought, well, it's just an hour, and I could do more animations like this. Why not do an hour of animation every single day? And since it's the first day of January, I can actually start. It's not too late. I wanted it to be personalized animation practice where I could do whatever I wanted just for myself, not for work, and that it could actually be animations I could share with people. For the first couple of days, I didn't have a thought process. I just kind of drew whatever I wanted to draw and animate, and that happened to be Sonic characters. I initially thought about having a continuing story for every day of the animation, but I found that I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to burn myself out. So I just did what I wanted to do. For example, day 3, just wanted to draw Rouge, just wanted to animate her twirling around, and it was fun practice too. I really wanted to think about how her wings moved around in a 3D space, so I even had to use like one of my Rouge figures to look at and try and figure out what do her wings look like at this angle. And it was starting to get really fun just to like play around with these Sonic characters emoting and expressing themselves. So day 4, thinking about what I wanted to animate, I was like, oh, what if I just animate Silver saying his line, doing a big inhale in his chest, making it kind of funny and goofy. And then I would send these animations to my cousin, and it was always fun to try and animate something and create some sort of punchline or something towards the end of it to throw my cousin off. And it was really satisfying sending her the Silver one saying, it's no use, because she was like, she got such a kick out of it. She's like, oh, I know something was going to happen when he started to take a deep breath. But by day 6, I started to lose momentum, and it just wasn't as fun as it was. I was craving something new to make this challenge feel fresh, to stimulate my artist mind. For day 8, my violin teacher that day had brought up doing animations for music videos and stuff, and it got me thinking about the aha take on me and stuff. So for day 8 of animation, I thought, what if I do something more artsy, something more flowy like you would see in a music video or lyric video animation. And so I kind of did like a girl falling in water or something and adding some colors around it to make it extra artsy. And I found that experimenting kind of helped me continue this challenge without just dreading it all the time. But then the next thing was figuring out, wait a second, I'm animating stuff, so I can make the stories in my head. And so my first go at that was making fun of the Sonic toothbrush that I stumbled upon one time. And you can see that story in my YouTube shorts, but I had always had this little bit in my head of what I would do to crack a joke at the Sonic toothbrush, and I thought, well, I can animate stuff now, so I can design the Sonic toothbrush and do a little animation of me reacting to said toothbrush. So I got to do one day where I animated myself brushing my teeth, and then the next day create the Sonic toothbrush and start to kind of just like sticker it in on top of the filler toothbrush and start playing around with different shots and creating that animated story. that one was a lot of work. I remember just kind of rushing my way through it because I just really wanted to make it, and I didn't want to spend too much time on it because I knew I was losing momentum. But still, some days, there was more motivation to animate things than others, and I constantly had in my mind, well, one day I should practice, do animation practice, work on a skill I need to work on. And I had been making some janky run and walk cycle animations, so one day I thought, okay, I'll use reference footage and actually do a running animation. So I used a video and put it into Procreate and then drew next to the footage frame by frame to kind of get an idea of how to do the running animation. But that was probably the worst day of animation, I would say, because that felt robotic. I didn't have any opportunity to make creative liberties and use my imagination or my brain, so that was not the best day. Another thing I found helpful, though, was getting to do 3D animation. Every time I got to a point where I didn't want to animate anymore, I would just tell myself, well, there's always 3D animation. And it was always like a breath of fresh air, I get to 3D animate, because there's just some days you don't want to draw, don't want to do 2D animation. And so getting to do 3D animation was such a treat and a privilege, and I enjoyed those days a lot because it kind of felt like a break from animating, even though it's still animation. But at least with that, you get to puppeteer a model. You don't have to draw the model frame by frame. It was nice that I was able to document a little bit of real time for both sides of that type of animation. I got to do one video sharing the process behind 2D animation, and then another video sharing the process behind the 3D animation for this challenge. And it was fun to be able to have that, but I'm glad that I didn't also obligate myself to document the real-time process for every day. I think that would have just driven me up a wall. But it wasn't an easy challenge by any means, but it was a good challenge to do. It definitely gave me a lot of practice, and it was interesting to just think about all the different ways I could try and work out of that block where I didn't want to animate. And so there were some times where it was, animating a specific character that got me out of it. And there were some times where I thought, okay, what if I do as little animation as possible? So barely that many frames, but I get to color the animation, which also helped to motivate me, as some of these last animation time lapses I'll share were the ones that I took the time to color, and those definitely had the least amount of frames. But they were a nice break because it felt more like art than the ever repetitive animation. So definitely a lot of animations I had daily that were shorter, I just spent more time drawing them than focusing on the actual movement and stuff when it was hard to want to animate. And then one last important thing that helped with my motivation to do this challenge was the great response I got from people in regards to the challenge. I didn't really start this challenge to be like this big YouTube challenge series that I do, but I just shared a short kind of talking about how some animation days are harder than others, and there was a great response to that, and it really fueled me and motivated me to continue the challenge. It was fun because I could make silly little animations and put them on the YouTube shorts and make these animations that other people could laugh at and enjoy. And I thought, this is right up my alley, because my dream is to make animated television series to share with the world someday. But ironically, it never occurred to me to implement that into this YouTube channel. It was kind of like, oh, people really like when I do this. Duh. Should have occurred to me to try that sooner. But one of the benefits of doing this challenge. So would I recommend this challenge to other people? Yes. It's great practice, but I would say do it your way. just how many days you want to do it, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, how long you want to do it, an hour, 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, because it's not about burning yourself out, forcing yourself to do a challenge, to have work to show for, to prove yourself as something, but rather it is to motivate and inspire you to create and show that you can do it. You just have to practice. The key is to just start. Make a little bit of time every day to devote to it. Have moments where you can be yourself and just create the essence of your creative being. Are there hard days? Are there days you will want to quit the challenge? Absolutely. But easy is not a good story. Hard is what's real. Things aren't easy. But for me personally, I knew this was a challenge worth forcing myself to do. So find that for you. I encourage you to go and create amazing things. So thank you for watching and supporting me as I did this challenge over the month. And may God bless you in your life and your art. Bye!